Thursday morning, I think. Yep, it is Thursday. I'm David Crohan, and every Tuesday and Thursday morning at this time, Claudette and I open up our home for music and stories and hopefully a laugh or two. And the way we start the show is by playing this song called Won't You Come Over to My House. It's in popular music terms, it's quite an old song. I say that because it's in classical music, it's relatively modern, but in American popular music, it's pretty old. I think it came out around 1905 or 6. I've known so many wonderful people, young and old, and of course we all have. But one of my favorite old ladies in my childhood was the lady that taught me this song. Her name was Nell. Everybody called her Aunt Nell. And my grandmother's name was Nell, except they called her Nellie. Now, Nellie is, at least at the time, was the nickname for Ellen. So both these ladies were named Ellen. But they will always be Nell or Nellie to me. I have started these shows for the last several weeks by playing two songs of prayer. Um, I have three sons, and as of a couple of weeks ago, 7 grandsons. My youngest son and his adorable, lovely wife have just had a new baby, their first, called Owen Robert. And my oldest son, Stephen, is almost 40. He was born in 75, so my God, does that make him almost 47? He was born on the 20th of November. So time marches on, and his wife is a glorious girl called Carrie, and they were married 11/11/11, and now she has been battling cancer, and from what I hear, the battle is going quite well. She's better than they had expected her to be at this time, and she had a treatment yesterday, which I think was the final one of this regime or regimen or whatever the word is. And so for the last couple of weeks, I've been playing as a starter for the show the Ave Maria of Schubert and the Lord's Prayer, which was set to music obviously by someone, but I don't know who it was. I keep saying I'm going to look it up, and I haven't done it yet. But it's a beautiful musical version of the Lord's Prayer, and I will recite the words as I go along, so that you can, well, most of you know the Lord's Prayer, I dare say, but anyway, that's what I do. So, and then I end it with a very sweet Irish song called "Oh, the Days of the Kerry Dancers." And then we'll go on to a little story about last night at work and the music that follows that. So here we go with Ave Maria, the Lord's Prayer, and Kerry Dancers. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. But lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom I've owned this piano for 5 or 6 years, I think now, and every time I play it, I'm overwhelmed by its beauty. It was a gift to me, and I treasure it immensely. I'm having a block trying to figure out what I want to say next. But anyway, Uh, oh, I know what it was, of course. Um, the Irish have a propensity to think of anniversaries, and today is the anniversary of my grandmother's demise, my father's mother. Um, she died on November 17th, 1959, and she was 81, and she was the sweetest grandmother anybody could have. I guess she was a bit of a pistol when she was younger, but when I knew her, she was very mellow and very sweet. And she and my grandfather lived on the second floor of a three-story house, which was all family. At the time of my infancy through around the time I was 5 and a half or so, my family, my nuclear family, lived on the first floor. My grandparents lived on the second, and their youngest daughter lived on the third, and they started having children with uh, significant dispatch. Uh, they had three daughters who were each 13 months apart, so it was not triplets, but it wasn't far from it. Um, and we all lived very, very happily in that situation. And then suddenly my father died, and things changed greatly. Um, and my mother had a hard time being in the house with my father's mother, and I mean, there was just so much grief that my mother felt that she had to get out of it, escape it somehow or other. And so we moved to various places, but we often came back to Beaufort Street. And eventually, many years later, my brother Bob, my second, I had a brother John who was the oldest, and Bob was the second child, and my sister Pauline was the third. And then 10 years later, I came along. But anyway, Bob bought the house from my grandfather, and he and his daughter and her family moved uh, not far from us, and so I still get to see him a lot. But anyway, um, the favorite song of my grandmother was the first song I played on the piano, which was, I thought it was a very old song, but it isn't. It was recorded by Bing Crosby in 1947, but it's a typical Irish ditty called Galway Bay, and it was the first recognizable thing that I played on the piano when I was 3. And my grandmother was in the room when it happened, and she couldn't believe her ears, and she asked me to do it again, and I did, and she was overwhelmed and overjoyed by it. I mean, I was too, I suppose. It was um, I thought it was really cool that I could play something that other people recognized. And that's how it all began. One more apocryphal note. This piano, and I have to get into a little bit in the weeds about this, but there are various agreements about everything in life, and music is no exception. Everything there has to be a general agreement about the pitches of things uh, and the way that every instrument uh, sounds and registers in writing the pitch of the note that is being played, and uh, the central note is an A that is violins are tuned E, A, D, and then the lowest note is G, and cellos, which are much lower than violins, are A, D, G, C. But anyway, all of these have to be agreed upon as the currency of the realm. Without it, music would be a cacophony. And so, but over time, as instruments improved, the uh, the agreement about pitch changed, and that which is now this is the agreed upon A, but in the late 19th century and well into the 20th century, that A was a half a tone lower, which is this. So it's A now, and now it's A flat, or it was that which used to be A, which now is A. I'm really screwing this up, but this was the way it used to be. And at some point, my grandmother decided to have the piano tuned. And somebody came to the house, Mr. Kane, his name was, and I don't know what happened, but he never finished it. And so the top uh, 2/3 of the piano were at the new higher pitch, and the bottom third or so of the piano from here down to all the way down, was in the lower pitch, and it became a very unpleasant experience when anybody played the piano because uh, it sounded like let's see, it sounded like this. I was playing It Should Be, of course, but the notes were a half a tone lower, and nobody uh, understood it, and nobody tried to figure it out. And I did when I was 3. Um, and so it meant that I had to play the notes in the left hand uh, a half a step higher on the keyboard to make it match the rest of the piano. And I think even now in my old age, I think it was an extraordinary thing for a 3-year-old child to do. And of course, nobody knew exactly what I was doing, and I probably couldn't explain it. But they knew that I was playing recognizable music, and that every time anybody else tried to play the piano, even if they played songs that they might be able to recognize, it always sounded horrible. But I could make it sound good. And so that stayed the same all through my childhood until I took a course in piano tuning when I was 15 at Perkins, the school for the blind that I went to, and I learned how to tune a piano, and it took me about 15 minutes to fix the problem in the old piano. Unfortunately, my grandmother was in the hospital, and she was in there for her final illness. But I went to see her 2 days before she died, and I told her that I had tuned the piano, and she said, "Oh, I can't wait to hear it." But of course, she never did. And the Irish had a taboo, or I don't know what the word is, but I couldn't play the piano for a month after she died. But when I did, my grandfather was there, and I adored him, but he was not a particularly musical sort of guy. But right away he noticed the difference, and he said, I can't tell you why, but the piano sounds altogether different and so much better." And of course that made my day. And so I'm going to start with the prayer songs. Have I done them already? I don't think so. My God. Anyway, I'm going to start the prayer songs, and if I've repeated them, then that's the way it is. So it will be the Ave Maria and the Lord's Prayer, and then Oh, the Days of the Carrie Dancers for my darling daughter-in-law, Carrie. I think I did this, but... But my English is so far passable, so this is Our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Last night I got into a conversation with an elderly lady. She's probably my age or probably younger. But I heard the Rhode Island accent, and I asked her about it, and she told me that she was from Providence, and she said that she had gone to Mount Pleasant High School, which was at the end of the street that I lived on, Beaufort Street, went into Mount Pleasant Avenue, and there was the high school right across the street. So I told her that I had lived on Beaufort Street, and she said, I passed your house every single day as I walked to my high school, and we both got a kick out of that. It was a nice connection to have made. And then later on in the evening, I'm reading a book about hockey, of all things. I don't know anything about it at all. My son, my oldest son, Stephen, whose wife is Carrie, was and is very into athletics and very good at them. And he uh, pitched a couple of no-hitter baseball games in his youth and perhaps since. And he was a very, very good hockey player as well. And so I'm reading this book, these series of books by a man named Frederick Backman. And I got into a conversation with a man towards the end of the night, and he was from Minnesota. And he says that he likes to come in and always calls Cafe l'Europe to make sure that I'm there before he comes, which is nice. And I told him I was reading this book, and he knows the author and really got a kick out of the fact that I was reading a book that he knew so well, and it was very nice for me. So altogether, it was a lovely night last night. So the time has gone by very quickly. So I'm just going to do whatever now, as I do at the end of every show. I'm sorry I talked so much, but too late now. So this is whatever comes into my head. And I guess a good way to start is I think I'm going out of my head. us were overjoyed. It opened up a whole world, which has been the mainstay of my life. Or at least one of them. If there is going to be a life hereafter, and somehow I am sure there's going to be, I shall ask my God to let me make my heaven in that dear land across the Irish Sea. If my grandmother were here, she would also want to hear this. Casey wore his brand new hat to Murphy's wake last night. Someone stole that hat, and boy, that started up a fight. Casey smashed the furniture, the radio as well. He nearly woke the corpse up when he began to yell. Oh, I had a hat when I came in, I hung it on the rack. I'll have a hat when I go out, or I'll break somebody's back. I'm a decent man, I am, and I don't want to shout. But I had a hat when I came in, and I'll have a hat when I go out. Casey kept on shouting, and they couldn't keep him quiet. Someone had to call the cops to come and stop the riot. 2 cops rushed into the room, but Casey laid them out. He fired them through the window. They both heard Casey shout. Oh, I had a hat when I came in, I hung it on the rack. I'll have a hat when I came out, or I'll break somebody's back. I'm a decent man, I am, and I don't want to shout. But I had a hat when I came in, and I'll have a hat when I go out. Casey kept on shouting until One-Eyed Patty Flynn socked him in the whiskers with a great big rolling pin. It knocked poor Casey senseless, boy, it was an awful clout. But as Casey lay unconscious, he kept on shouting out. Oh, I had a hat when I came in, I hung it on the rack. I'll have a hat when I go out, or I'll break somebody's back. I'm a decent man, I am, and I don't want to shout. But I had a hat when I came in, and I'll have a hat when I go out. Here's to you, Nellie. One more, wait till the sun shines, Nellie. It was done both like this, as an old-fashioned waltz. who taught me "Won't You Come Over to My House" was named Nell, they called her. Both of them were named Ellen, and Nellie was the nickname for that. And Aunt Nell, as I called her, was one of the premier elderly people in my life, which was surprisingly full of elderly people who were really, really nice to me when I was young. And I've never forgotten them and hopefully never will. So here we go with whatever comes into my head now. This time for real. And it's going to start with When Sunny Gets Blue. When Joanna Loved Me. The words to When Joanna Loved Me, it ends on every day is Paris and the month is May. So we'll do a couple of Paris songs and perhaps a couple of, I can only think of one song about May, but here's some Paris. this is the last time I saw Paris. ABC. I have to confess that I play this by ear, so it's not entirely accurate. In fact, it's not all that accurate at all, or someplace in the middle. First time I played the newly tuned piano was for my grandfather, and he was not particularly musical, but he recognized the difference, and this is the song I played for him. It was his favorite song, and that makes it one of mine as well. Cruising down the river on a Sunday afternoon. is how we always close these shows. Till there was you, and I'll be loving you always. Tell the people you love that you love them. And I don't think there is better advice than can ever be given, really. We don't do it enough. And how can it hurt? I suppose it can hurt if when you say that to them, they say, that's nice, but I don't love you. But with any of you, that's not likely to happen. Certainly love you all. Before we get into a conundrum here, I'm going to sign off and see you next time. Love you all.